The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Liran Eisenberg. Lee is the Senior Director of Data Architecture and Engineering at Macys. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we're delighted to have you. Lee, we've got a lot to cover, but let's start with yourself, please. Can you give us a bit of an introduction on your background in technology, from where you got started and what's led you to where you are today?
I started off as a Java developer, learned that in the university. I was part of the Army's academic reserve. And when I came back to the Army, the version of Java that actually I had known was switched. I had two options in front of me: either continue with the newest version of Java at the time, we're talking about 25 years ago, or convert to something else. The something else that was available at that point in time was what today is known as data engineering. So I started off my career as a section commander in the Army, dealing with distributed systems and the world of data at large. Pretty much on my first project, I ran into a budget issue, which caused me to have to learn the skills of a DBA because I could only afford one for 1 year. And it was a 7-year project. So I undertook all of that. When I left the Army a decade later, I did additional conversions into more modern technologies. I'm talking about 18 years ago. Had to deal with a variety of internet-related technology, such as firewalls, data centers that are both legacy and, at the time, the newest technology, and a wide variety of operating systems and data platforms. I did a various line of roles, anything from working within a startup to working within enterprises like IBM, where I was the professional services manager. At some point in my life, I decided to become an independent contractor. I actually created my own company for a data consulting company. And I also became a partner with Amazon at the time, talking about almost 10 years ago, with AWS. And I was a certified instructor for them on cloud technologies in general and dealing with big data in the cloud in particular. My previous role before Macys, I was the Senior Director of Data Engineering at 2U, which is an education technology company. And today I'm the Senior Director of Data Architecture and Engineering at Macys, where there are about 7 teams that report to me, with a total headcount of about 550 people.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate you taking us all the way back to the beginning and the early stages of data engineering before it was as well known and well regarded as it is now, because that really speaks to you being a true practice lead and early expert in this field. So you're now leading the ship for all things engineering at Macys. You know, we don't need to go into who they are as a business, one of the most well-known brands across retail. But what people may not be as aware of is the level of investment that Macys is putting towards its data, its engineering, to improve customer experience and also its ability to do business. So can you give us some insight into what drew you to the role at Macys? What was it about the work? And then talk to us about your role, which covers those 7 teams across all the data engineering.
As you said, Macys is a household name. It's also a well-known and well-respected name. And one of the appeals of Macys was, for the first time in my life, and I'm in my 40s, when I called my mother and told her I'm starting to work for Macys, she was excited. Because again, it's a household name with a good reputation. What I found at Macys during my interview process, which was about a year ago, was a very, I would say, human driven company culture. It is about the customer, but it's also about the employee experience. From the perspective of the team itself, at the time, the biggest challenge was to try to restructure what data engineering at Macys actually meant. And in today's org structure, I'm the head of a few entities that previously were not part of the same group, and they are now a bridge under me. And I deal with all aspects of data from ingestion all the way to the BI layer, including the BI layer. So my 7 teams are split between data ingestion, data migrations, because we have non-cloud data platforms that we still have to migrate into the cloud, although it's about 95% done. We deal with enterprise use cases of data. We deal with specific stakeholders' data needs, because, for instance, if you look on a merchant within a retail company, the merchant has need for analytics that sometimes are common with everyone else, such as what did we sell, to whom, and for what. And there are also custom data needs that are only related to the life cycle of being a merchant. So when it's a specific stakeholder that has their own needs, I have a separate team that deals with that. I have a team that deals with support of all the various data solutions that we have implemented and built, whether they're homegrown or simply legacy. And I have a team that deals with the BI layer and making sure that we can reuse data sets across multiple BI platforms. Because Macys, at the end of the day, is a company of 100,000 plus employees. They're a large community of analytical users. There's a large community of business stakeholders that rely on analytics as well as a reference to making business decisions. And the size of the team is reflecting the level of commitment the company has towards analytics in general.
Yeah, so on that point, you've referenced there the size of the team and the investment. Can you give us some insight into what the high-level strategy is and how that plays out day to day across those various teams, what it looks like on the ground if our listeners were a member of the engineering team? What's the typical project life cycle? How does it all collaborate and towards the overall big goal?
I would distinguish between two different scenarios. Scenario number one is a major project, something that is a big investment on our side. For instance, it might be taking an aspect of the analytical data within the company and then modernizing it. Now, modernizing it doesn't necessarily mean switching platforms, because we are cloud-based for the majority of things already. But certain paradigms sometimes change, certain reporting needs change, certain mindsets and how much data we can actually embed and business logic we can embed also change. So those kinds of projects tend to be on a lifespan of about 1 to 3 years. They're a combination of engineers along with some of my peers from data governance, from data science, from machine learning, from our analytical community, as well as the business, where we come together as a group, build out pods to deliver value over the period of time of the program, and try to revamp it based on both current needs and current technology. The second part has to do more with day-to-day. For instance, on a daily basis, we have to create integrations on new data sources that are simply there, or existing data sources that their APIs may have shifted, their formats may have shifted. The scale of what we do is in the petabytes when it comes for each data set. So each change like this has immense implications for us. So when it comes to day-to-day, it's more like a waterfall, where we tackle with certain changes, and the teams are built accordingly. And for the project work, we use more of an agile methodology of trying to break it down into smaller pieces, deliver value over the period of time, and constantly keep checking on relevancy.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to spend some time now on the point of the culture, the working environment, and what's made Macy such an attractive place to work for people, particularly in the world of AI, data science, data engineering. You and I were speaking previously about some of the things that drew you to Macy's, but also what it's been like since joining and working there. Can you give us some insight into when you're speaking to data engineers about the project, the environment, the mission, and the opportunity to work with data? What is it that you tell them about the environment that gets them excited and interested to join Macy's over many of the other great opportunities available to them?
I would say that the people first culture and collaboration is really something that resonates from the top. When you join Macy's, part of your onboarding training is training about the company culture itself. And it's headed by our CEO, by Jeff Gannett. And it starts off by saying, how can I help? And that has been the leading factor of every conversation. It's always driven towards collaboration and value add, how to solve problems, not about anything beyond that. And I find this to be very positive as a work environment where you can, if you're an engineer, you can spend time with anyone in the company, including C-level, working together to achieve goals. And it's very common for us to set aside hierarchy, titles, and such, and simply come together to bring more value and resolve issues and make progress. And that, I think, is a very different culture than most, where you see often the engineering being siloed off, given a statement of work from the business and having less visibility into this. Let me give you some examples. We do monthly demos for each team. When we do the demos, we actually add the business stakeholders to this. When we go and talk about what the team does, we showcase it not by bringing an engineer to talk about the work, but rather bring a business stakeholder to give what the work actually meant for the company. What was the value add that we have achieved? And I think that culture where we are both an engineering organism, but we are also with a connectivity to the business and being able to adapt to the business needs, I think that's the biggest advantage we have from a culture perspective.
Lee, looking ahead now to what's next for Macy's from a data and AI standpoint, obviously you play a pivotal role in not just the strategy side, but the execution. When you look at the next 2 to 3 years, what are you excited about from a data perspective that you and your team are going to be working on, and what can we expect to see change as customers?
I would say this, the roadmap on the data engineering side of the house has a lot of modernizations on it, whether it's modernizations regarding the way we do analytics from a culture perspective inside the company, to try to make it more business driven and less, I would say, report driven. Make the data itself more accessible for non-tech users within the company, which again adds more visibility and analytical capabilities for the business as well, because then you're no longer limited to a person that has the right access and the right skill sets with SQL to try to corral the data for you. And you can actually use a simple interface to answer a business question. So reverse engineering from that means for us that we are already on our journey of digital transformation of the analytical stack, piece by piece, over the various ways the business operates. And as we progress with that, I think that will enable the company to offer more of a customized experience for the customer. Because at the end of the day, the more we can enable AI and machine learning and business decisions to be made based on analytical data on an associate level within the company, the more we can actually address the customer's needs as they pertain to a person and not a group. And that's the journey we're on, and it's an exciting one because of the scale and complexity of Macys.
Certainly is. Happy to report that the team is growing. There's going to be ample opportunity for people who want to work in this field and further hone their skills with the backing of an incredible brand. Lee, thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed hearing about your background. Very early adapter of data engineering. You've held many interesting roles, a true expert in the space, and now leading the efforts at Macys. And I already know from the reputation that Macy has within the data world is it's a great place to work, and it will continue to remain so with your involvement. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.